Did NASA scoop up alien life on Mars only to accidentally destroy it? What's the story behind mysterious monoliths found on the red planet? These are alien structures spotted on Mars that NASA tried to cover up. So did NASA accidentally discover life on Mars almost 50 years ago, only to destroy it before realizing what they'd found? Well, that's the theory posed by Dirk Schultz-Makuch, an astrobiologist at the Technical University of Berlin. In a June 27th article for Big Think, Dirk talked about how the Viking landers may have accidentally came across tiny life forms while collecting samples of Martian rocks in 1976, but their experiments may have killed these life forms before they could be identified. The Viking 1 and Viking 2 landers carried out several experiments designed to detect signs of life. Now, while most of these experiments didn't show clear signs of life, a few results were rather interesting. See, a couple of their experiments hinted that some form of metabolism might be happening in the Martian soil. One test, which uses a tool called a gas chromatograph mass spectrometer, or GCMS, picked up traces of chemicals that shouldn't normally be on Mars, at least what they'd assume. Now, at first, scientists thought it was just contamination from cleaning products used on Earth, but later they realized those chemicals could naturally occur on Mars. There was also a big test designed to check if Mars had any living organisms, called the gas exchange experiment, but that one came back negative. That made most scientists think Mars had no life, but Dirk thinks they just messed up. He believes that the amount of water used in the tests could have killed off any microbes that were actually there, so the tests came back wrong. To put things in the bluntest and most simple wording possible, that is. But continuing with Schultz-Makuch's theory, back in 2008, the Phoenix rover, which was exploring the Martian North Pole, made an unexpected discovery while scooping up soil. It found evidence of perchlorate, a type of salt. Now, on Earth, ancient microorganisms use perchlorate as an energy source, so scientists got kind of excited, thinking it could be a sign of similar life on Mars. But here's the thing, it's a highly flammable substance. It's actually used on Earth to make a rocket fuel and fireworks burn faster. So if perchlorate was in the Martian soil, the theory went, Vikings' attempts to heat the soil might have set the perchlorate on fire, burning any organic material that might have been present. But if the substance really did incinerate any potential Martian life, there would likely be evidence of it left behind. When carbon burns with perchlorate, it produces chlorobenzene, a compound that contains carbon, hydrogen, and chlorine. Chlorobenzene can stick around in soil for months, and as it turns out, NASA's Curiosity rover did find traces of chlorobenzene in Martian soil during a 2013 mission. So researchers decided to go back and reanalyze Viking's original data, this time focusing specifically on chlorobenzene. Sure enough, they found trace amounts of the compound in samples taken by Viking 2. This means that the Viking mission might have indeed come across organic material, only to burn it up before they could study it. Melissa Guzman, a researcher from the Latmos Research Center in France, explained that while the evidence is compelling, though, it's not proof of Martian life, at least not definitively. The carbon compounds could have been contaminants from Earth, but some scientists, like Daniel Glavin from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, believe this new research could be the most important evidence pointing to organic molecules possibly existing on Mars. Now, in 1976, the Viking 1 orbiter captured a photo of what looked a lot like a humanoid face on Mars. This eerie formation, found in the Cydonia region, was about 2 kilometers long, and from a specific angle, the rock structure looked a hell of a lot like a human face, an especially creepy human face. You could see what looked like eyes, a nose, and mouth. This strange appearance led some to think it was a relic from some ancient Martian civilization, maybe even a monument built by extraterrestrials. The timing couldn't have been better for conspiracy theorists who jumped on that idea that NASA was hiding proof of intelligent life on Mars. But when the Mars Global Surveyor took higher resolution images in 2001, followed by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's detailed shots in 2007, the face turned out to be nothing more than a natural rock formation. The new pictures showed a rugged, uneven hill with no facial features to be found, but the original image is absolutely iconic, especially among UFO enthusiasts who still argue that NASA is covering something up. Some think NASA intentionally downplays some of these stranger things they come across, in this case that Mars could have been home to some advanced civilization. In May of 2022, the Curiosity rover snapped a picture of what appeared to be this perfectly cut out doorway in some Martian rocks. The rectangular shape, about a foot tall, seemed like a deliberate opening, but no one's ever set foot on Mars, at least no one from Earth. So just what is this thing? Could it have been made by an ancient Martian civilization? The idea that Mars could have once been inhabited by intelligent beings who built doorways definitely caught a lot of people's attention. But scientists quickly offered a more grounded explanation. They pointed out that this so-called doorway was probably just the result of a natural process called differential erosion, where softer rock wears away faster than the harder rock around it. Over millions of years, this process can create openings in the surface. Experts also explain that Mars experiences seismic activity, or Marsquakes, which could have helped form this specific shape. Now, a couple of strange rectangular shapes have popped up on Mars, igniting all kinds of rumors and conspiracy theories. The first was spotted by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and it's a mysterious object that looks like a massive rectangular boulder. The high-resolution, high-rise camera captured this from about 180 miles above the surface, showing details so sharp that it makes you wonder if this is just a rock or something more. Then there's the Phobos monolith found on Mars' moon, Phobos. This huge rock, about 295 feet tall, was discovered by amateur astronomer Efren Palermo, who was analyzing Martian images. The size and shape of the monolith make it pretty hard to ignore. It's even appeared in fiction, like in Alistair Reynolds' 2012 novel Blue Remembered Earth, where it's said to have been carved by astronauts into the shape of a wrecked spaceship. So, are these monoliths giant space markers left by some ancient alien race, or are they just oddly shaped rocks on Mars and its moon? Now, this cropped image from the Mars Opportunity rover of a rock looks very similar to a Neo-Assyrian attendant god statue that's currently being housed at the British Museum. The resemblance is pretty uncanny, and it only added to all the conspiracies about aliens visiting Earth in ancient times, possibly bringing back souvenirs. Some even wonder if these sculptures were inspired by alien visitors. But much like the mysterious doorway, could our brains just be seeing patterns that aren't really there? In 2022, NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter found something that got people's attention: a hole on the Martian surface near a volcano. Now, at first, a hole might not sound like a big deal, but this one could be critical for future human missions. This hole is just a few meters across, but scientists aren't sure how deep it goes. The real excitement comes from the possibility that the hole might be connected to a larger underground cavern, or caverns, which could be useful for astronauts hopefully living on Mars in the future, fingers crossed. Planet's thin atmosphere doesn't provide the kind of radiation shielding that Earth's does, so having an underground base would make for a perfect refuge from the harmful space radiation. Even more fascinating is the idea that these pits could have housed living beings already. On Earth, there are karsts, natural cave networks that form when limestone erodes. If Martian pits are similar, they could have offered a warm, protected environment that might have supported life long ago. It's easy to see why some people think that NASA is keeping more secrets than they're letting on when it comes to Mars. In January of 2014, the Opportunity rover came across something very strange: a rock that had mysteriously appeared in an area where it hadn't been before. This rock, about 4 centimeters wide, also had an odd shape and color that made it look almost like a jelly donut. The rock's outer layer was white, while the center was dark red. The fact that the rock seemed to come out of nowhere, too, became quite the story. Some people even took legal action against NASA at the time, apparently, demanding answers about this mysterious object. Well, NASA did come out, and they said that the rover had probably kicked up a rock during its movements, and the white outer layer was likely exposed when the rock flipped over, revealing a surface that hadn't been exposed to the Martian atmosphere for billions of years. But even with this explanation, the rock raises some interesting questions about how little we really know about the Martian environment. Who knows what other strange rocks there are to be found out there? In August of 2014, an image from NASA's Curiosity rover showed what appeared to be a human thigh bone on the Martian surface. This rock formation, about a foot long, looked almost exactly like a femur, complete with what seemed like a ball joint at one end. For a brief moment, conspiracy theorists had a field day with this, posting about how NASA had come across alien remains, but scientists, like they do, came along with a much less interesting explanation. They just explained that the rock wasn't a bone, but just a formation shaped by the powerful winds of Mars. Yes, this seemed to be a simple case of pareidolia, where the human brain just tends to recognize familiar shapes in random objects. Mars's wind erosion can sculpt rocks into shapes that look like things we may recognize from Earth. So, as cool as the idea of alien bones was, it turned out to be just another trick of nature. Most likely, anyway. So, what does all this weird stuff culminate in? Well, the theory about a massive alien base hidden beneath the surface of the red planet. Of course, the theory goes that NASA and other space agencies have known about it for years, but they've been covering it up to prevent a panic. Some say the base is buried deep under Mars's dusty surface, built by an ancient alien civilization that used to call the planet home. The reason they think it's hidden: certain anomalies spotted in photos sent back from rover missions, structures that don't look normal, like the monoliths we talked about earlier. Some even point to areas where there are strange geometric patterns or long straight lines that seem to form unnatural shapes, like tunnels or underground entrances, possibly. There's also talk of bizarre lights seen on Mars's surface in NASA's own images, which some claim are signs of energy sources or artificial illumination. The theory is that these bases are still operational and that alien life is quietly waiting beneath the surface. Of course, mainstream science doesn't acknowledge any of this, but what do you all think? Is there a full-on cover-up going on? Is Mars the home of ancient alien bases? Let us know in the comments, and with that said, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.